I am Jeff Belomo, and welcome to the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show, hosted by me, yours truly, Jeffrey Belomo, where we discuss all things estate planning and elder law, and well, hey, anything else we want to talk about. And on today's episode, this is a big one for me. I have my dear friend Susan Hunter with me. Susan and I have known each other since 2009 in a national organization for elder law attorneys. We traveled the country teaching for years together. And I give a lot of credit to my success and to being able to educate the community to Susan. And so this is a long time coming. But before we get into that, I just want to do the disclaimer. Just remember, please do not take any advice that you hear from this show or any other show for that matter to constitute legal advice. If you're looking to get legal advice, please contact an attorney licensed in the state that you reside in that actually practices in the area that you need advice in. Then and only then should you take something that you're hearing to constitute legal advice and take matters accordingly based upon that advice. Now, at Belomo and Associates, we do free educational workshops in the area of estate planning, crisis Medicaid planning, special needs planning, life care planning, as well as administration for probate and trust administration after the death of a loved one. If you're looking for legal advice or for education, please come to one of our free educational workshops to get advice in one of those areas, and then we'll be able to give you assistance to be able to help in that area. My entire vision and my motto is educating so that what happened to my family doesn't happen to yours, and our weekly workshops will be able to assist you. You can learn about our weekly workshops on our website. The address is www.belomoassociates.com, and our number is 717-845-5390. And just to spell it for you, Belomo is B as in boy, Ellomo. Awesome. All right. Well, Susan, how are you today?
I'm fantastic. I've been so looking forward to this, Jeff.
Oh, me too.
Just like you said, it's been a while. We haven't chatted for some time, and I've missed you terribly, but I'm excited to do this.
Yes, me as well. And just for my listeners, Susan did sell her estate planning and elder law practice for many years. We had an identical practice. Our trajectories were right in line with each other, and we've been dear friends for a long time. So she's not here today to talk about estate planning and elder law necessarily, other than we'll probably go back in history and talk about us and traveling together. But I did want to say that her firm was in Indiana, and just a great attorney, wonderful human, and just a great practice, and did a lot for that community. And I'm just honored to be on the podcast. So really cool.
I should take a minute and plug the successors to my firm. Who,
absolutely.
I actually sold the firm to my partners, Justin Schuhmacher and Jenny Rozelle, and they have continued on the trajectory of growth. They've done such a marvelous job. I could not be prouder. It's not called Hunter Estate and Elder Law anymore. It's called Indiana Estate and Elder Law now.
Okay.
And they changed the name as soon as the state agreed that we don't have to have our names in the name of our firm anymore.
Fair enough.
I was actually involved in that name change, but they have done a fantastic job, and just I couldn't be prouder. The firm has continued to grow and expand and bring more people on board. It's just a wonderful thing to watch.
Yeah, and they are also dear friends of mine as well. I mean, I haven't seen them nearly as much either as I would certainly like, but when you kind of grow up together, and Jenny was coming to the events with us for years before Justin came on board with her, and great people, great law firm, great organization in Indiana. So yeah, absolutely. So I'm dying to know, just for the record, what is it that you're up to now, Susan? I mean, we're going to go back in history, but I want to know what your passions are now.
Okay, well, I retired from practicing law and was very fortunate to be able to do that while still young enough to pursue another dream. And so that's what I've done. My husband and I moved to Nevada during COVID, and we live in a small town. The name of the town is Mesquite. And I have always been passionate about my dogs.
Yes.
And I love my dogs. I've always loved my dogs. We've rescued many dogs. And I always wanted to just kind of be in the dog business or be in the dog world. So we have managed to build an incredible business out here where we're doing doggy daycare, we do boarding, grooming, training, all of those things. We are in the final stages finally of construction of our brand new facilities that oh, it's amazing, Jeff. It's
Wow.
we bought 14 acres of ground in the middle of the desert, and and we've turned it into a state of the art facility that'll be opening next month for boarding, daycare, all of those things. But then we also put in a second building that's a 5,000 square foot indoor dog park.
Whoa.
I don't know if you've ever spent any time in Southern Nevada, but if you've ever been here in the summertime, it is in competition with the surface of the sun temperature wise. It's
Oh.
we get well into the hundreds. 120 degrees is not uncommon in the middle of summer.
Whoa.
So the particular challenge is you can't take your dogs outside. It's
Oh.
dangerous for the dogs to be outdoors. They could burn their paws. They could, lots and lots of terrible things. So the indoor dog park concept was really what started this whole thing. That was
Wow.
my first original idea, was they need an indoor dog park where my dog can go and run and be safe and be in air conditioning, and it just bloomed from there into all of these other things, and it's amazing and so much fun. I
Wow.
can't even tell you how much fun it is. It certainly has its challenges, just as any business does.
Sure.
And at the same time, at the end of the day, you're playing with dogs. so,
Right.
so,
Oh.
you can't beat that, right? You
No,
can't.
not at all.
So
Yeah,
we're
and you've
really
always been
excited.
passionate.
We're super excited to open the new facility. That'll be coming in the coming weeks. They're doing the final stages. Actually, my husband's over there right now putting doggy doors in.
No
So
way.
we're getting very
Wow.
close.
Wow. And that is in Mesquite, Nevada?
Yes, yes.
Wow. I didn't know it got that hot there. Holy
It
cow.
gets really hot here in the summertime. It's the desert. It's beautiful in the winter, 70 degrees and sunny
Great.
and awesome in the winter. But you have to get through those 75 to 90 days in the summer where it's really miserable. It's quite
Yeah.
miserable. So
Wow. That's crazy. Well,
air conditioning.
one fun fact about Susan and I is that we are fans of complete opposite sports teams. So I am a Steeler fan, as many of you know from my podcast, and Susan is a fan of
The Cincinnati Bengals,
the
who they?
Cincinnati
I'm
Bengals.
searching desperately for
Oh,
something within reach that has a Bengals logo, and there's
oh
not.
no, and I don't have anything with a Steelers logo on me either. But so Susan and I, we'll get to this in a little bit, but we did travel for years teaching lawyers, estate planning, trust planning, Medicaid planning, and we became dear friends. A lot of hotels, a lot of days teaching 3-4 days in a row, and we got to know each other pretty well and our passions. So we started a bet. I mean, this is going back years,
Oh yeah, it's probably
where
15 years.
I probably yeah, and every time the Bengals and the Steelers play, whether it's regular season or playoffs, we have a little friendly wager, and which team wins, and
Excuse me.
whatever team loses,
Hmm.
I have to donate to Susan's charity of her choice, and she donates to my charity of my choice. And we've been doing that for a long time, and it has been so much fun. So I personally tend to have my donations go to Olivia's house, which is a grief and loss center in the York, Pennsylvania area for individuals who lose a loved one, whether it be a parent, a grandparent, a sibling, and it's for children. And my wife is on the board; she's on and off the board for years, and it's near and dear to my heart. Susan made a couple donations to Olivia's house, and we're certainly very, very appreciative of that. And I also have made donations. And Susan, what is typically the charity that you have me donate to?
Well, it's changed over the years,
It
as I'm
has.
sure you know, but the most recent one is actually our own foundation that we
Yep.
set up. Our doggy business is called BARK Canine Club, and last year we set up a 501c3, the Mesquite BARK Foundation, that is just benefiting dogs all over the community and all over Southern Nevada and Southern Utah. So I just recently, last year, had you switch over to that. Prior to that, we did
Yeah.
the Humane Society for a while, and then we did, I think, Friends of the Shelter, and
Yep.
now it's Mesquite Park Foundation.
Yes, and I'd say over the 15 years, we're probably fairly even. I mean, for a
Uh,
while I was on a run, and then you
you
got on a
were on a
run.
roll for about, I think there was about 8 or 10 in a row.
Ooh, was it that many?
But overall, I'll bet I would say if we went back and looked, it's pretty close.
Yeah. Well,
It's pretty close.
lately I think you've been getting the better hand lately, other than the fact that the quarterback Joe Burrows got hurt this year, which helped us a little bit.
Yeah.
But outside of that,
He'll be
man, you
back.
guys have been yeah, no question. There is no question. It's always a healthy competition too. I mean, we
Absolutely.
always text each other the morning of and say, "Are we on?" I've noticed lately we don't even have to do that anymore. It's just kind
No.
of who's writing the check, you know?
It's a standing bet, and it has been a lot of fun over the years. It
It sure
it keeps
has.
things interesting, and to be honest, Jeff, especially since I retired, it keeps you and I connected,
Yes.
and so I'm grateful for football for doing that.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of times weeks and months can go by, and I mean, certainly I think about you often, but
Mhm.
it's not as though we're connecting all the time anymore. So that is a
Right.
fun thing during football season. At least a couple of times, we're always checking in and having a conversation via text. So, one thing I never asked you is how did you get into elder law? Like, I actually don't know the answer to that. I was just curious. I don't.
Well, it sort of happened by accident. Um, my grandparents, I had a very close relationship with my grandparents when I was a
Yeah.
kid growing up. We visited them every Sunday, and they were really important to me. And my grandmother, as she aged, grandpa passed relatively young. I was in college, but my grandmother, as she aged, moved into a continuity of care facility. They had the independent, assisted, and skilled nursing all in one roof. And over the course of maybe 10 years, she lived in all three sections of that facility.
Wow.
And I remember having dinner with her one night, and they had the big fancy dining room with the big 10-seat round tables, and we're having dinner and we're chatting. And I noticed the conversation was around, well, did you get your will done, Ruth? Well, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I said to her, Nana, why don't you guys have a lawyer come in here and explain all this to you? And I'll never forget this. She goes, we don't want those lawyers in here. They're terrible people.
Yep.
I was in law school when she said that to me. And I never, ever forgot that.
Wow.
So when I got the opportunity to step into an elder law firm, it was a small firm in Indianapolis right after I got out of law school, and the opportunity just kind of landed for me. I jumped on it. I just absolutely
Wow.
jumped on it, and I fell in love with the field very quickly, and went out on my own about 2 years in. Spent a couple years in that firm, and then just went out on my own, hung my shingle, started from my dining room, and
Wow.
had zero. I had probably negative dollars at the time, not even zero. And you're gonna love this. My husband, this is his favorite part of the whole story. We couldn't even afford furniture. We had just bought our first home,
Wow.
and I had this old folding table. Do you remember the old folding
Oh
tables
yeah.
that had belonged to my grandmother?
Oh.
And that is the table that I started my law practice on.
Wow.
I had that and a computer and a phone, and that was how I launched it. And I just did everything myself
Wow.
and went out and pounded the pavement to get customers or clients, and relied 100% on referrals.
Yep.
Just I had no money. I couldn't advertise. I couldn't do anything like that. And just very fortunately, got it growing and growing and growing. And then there was the big turning point for me. It started in 2008. I met you a year later.
Right.
But once I joined, linked up with Dave Zampano and got involved with MPS and LWP, that was really the big turning point where my
Yeah.
practice turned into a law firm.
And what like how did you meet Dave and Lawyers with Purpose? Like how did all that happen? I don't remember that story either.
It was there a financial planner that I knew. I knew him. He was one of those kind of questionable financial planners.
Gotcha.
I'm sure you've come across them.
Sure.
In any event, he kept hounding me and saying, "Hey, I want to do this webinar that is being pushed to me, but I have to show up with an attorney. I'm not allowed to do it unless an attorney joins me." And so I was like, okay, fine. So I jumped on that, and it was Zampano. doing his MPS webinar, and invited everyone on the webinar to take his 3-day course. And so okay, fine, I'll do that. And oddly enough, the financial planner didn't even show up. It was in
Whoa.
Charlotte, and I got to Charlotte, and he just never showed up. Never showed up. But it was truly a life changer for me.
Yeah.
As you well know from when you first met Dave,
Yeah.
he is quite the character. I don't know if he's been on your podcast or not, but
Yes, he has been.
he
Yeah.
he changed my life.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
There's no question about it. That series of events, even though it was a very questionable professional who I no longer have any relationship with,
Right.
uh, but the
It worked
whole
out though.
series of events just snowballed, and it changed everything.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever told you this story, but when I originally opened the practice, it was Belomo and Platt, and
Uh-huh.
there was a gentleman by the name of Nate Platt, who's my best friend, still is to this day. And we were on the plane, and we had no money, and I mean no money. Like we had literally just used the last $20,000 on my line of credit to get to the program. And then we got stuck there because of a blizzard. I mean, in Orlando. I mean, well, the blizzard was in Pennsylvania, not in Orlando, of course. And it literally tapped us out of every last penny that we had. And I just remember looking at him saying, Nate, this is either going to be the best decision of our life or the worst decision of our life. How about we make it the best? And to this day, I mean, as you know, I mean, you've been along with me for the journey as well. I mean, I often people will ask me, you've been a member now since 2009. Why are you still there? Why are you still going to all the events? Why are you still because I wouldn't be where I am without them.
Exactly.
And I was taught by my mom and my dad, you don't forget the person or the people who got you to the dance.
Yeah.
And I'll never, same with you. I mean, I feel the same way about you and Nate and Dave. And, there's some key people in my life that I kind of look back on, and that's the point, right? I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know, I just remember too with the first couple of programs that we trained together.
Yeah.
Um, you were a couple years older, a
Oh,
couple
you're so
more,
very generous.
a couple more years, experienced in elder law for sure.
Yeah.
And I looked up to you so much. And I remember one time I was getting ready for a program, and I was like working and studying the night before I got on the plane. And my wife said, honey, you've taught this a few times. And I'm like, yeah, but I have to know it as well as Susan. I don't want to be up there and not look like I know it as well as she does. And to this day, I'll have other attorneys that will come in that I'll be training, and they're like, well, how did you get to know all of this? Because this isn't stuff that comes up in the practice all the time. And I'm
Right.
like, look, when you're traveling and you're
Mhm.
teaching with somebody that you respect, and you know that there's attorneys coming and they're paying really good money,
Yeah.
you learn things because you don't want to look stupid, and you want to know it as well as anybody in the room. And while I don't know, there's some of that stuff that I don't use on a regular basis, truthfully, but it comes up and every now and then, and I'm like, oh yeah, I could pull that right out of my head.
It triggers, doesn't it?
It
Yeah. Well,
does. It's crazy.
somebody told me a long time ago, the best way to learn something is to teach it.
Teach it. Teach it.
And all of that, and I so appreciate your kind words, and I will add to them this: the first time I taught it was a disaster. and it was a disaster. Ask Dave. He was there. He and I were co-teaching it, and I didn't understand timing. I didn't understand, tracking, managing the room, all of those sort of logistics. I knew how to be in front of a bunch of people and just talk,
Right.
right? I could do that. That's a natural skill. However, the logistics behind doing something like what we did were lost on me at the beginning. And I remember
Yeah.
Dave being just so frustrated with me because I was taking forever to teach something, and it had only allocated like 10 minutes and I was in it like an hour.
Yeah. I think there may have been times that I did that to you, but hey, you know what? We got back on track.
Those experiences, though, just are what make us good, right? That's what
Mm-hmm.
improves the program. That's what improves the experience. And that's what makes us better at teaching and at practicing law. So
Yeah.
but ask him sometime when you got time about that first time.
All right. I will. I will. I am teaching this fall in
Yeah.
Cleveland, I believe,
Oh,
at an event. So I will definitely, I talk to
yep.
him on a monthly basis still. So I will definitely do that. The one thing, I don't know if I've ever told you this. So, well, I'm sure you'll remember this conversation. You had taught me about a maintenance program.
Uh-huh.
It's, she knows exactly where I'm going with
Uh,
this. And I just never bought in. I never believed in it. I never saw the value to the client. Sometimes when we teach programs, we're teaching to lawyers, so you're teaching it in a way for the lawyer to understand, like, why is this valuable to you? Why is this something that you should be doing? And Jeffrey's little brain was always, well, yeah, but I don't care what it does for me. I want to know what it does for the client.
mhm.
And not good, not bad, but that's just how I was wired. And I remember you kind of hitting me over the head with a pan. I mean, maybe not literally, but you probably wanted to that day. And it was you explaining to me why it was valuable for the client. And
Mhm.
while, yes, we had been explaining it from the perspective of why it was valuable for a lawyer, that's because the lawyers were in the room, dummy.
Right.
But here's why it's so valuable for the client. And, we actually call it the Red Wagon Club now at
Oh, I
Belomo and
like that.
Associates. Yeah. And
Yeah.
we're over, I don't know, 800 members in the Red Wagon Club. And so,
Fantastic.
yeah. And I really do owe that one to you. I mean, do you remember
Well,
all that?
I do remember that. I remember it well because it wasn't just one time hitting you over the head. It was multiple times. And I think a little bit of smacking you on the cheeks too. Uh, and finally convincing you to start that program. But I'm going to tell you an interesting story. Just a couple of weeks ago, I got a phone call from a former client of mine who I had a really great relationship with. He had my cell phone number, so
Yeah.
it was a really good relationship. And he is still in the maintenance program with Jenny and Justin.
Yeah.
And he had a question about something in his plan that we had done years ago.
Right.
He called me and he said, "Now I'm still in that maintenance program. I know you're not at the law firm anymore, but I have this question, and I'm going to ask you the question." And so I chatted with him for quite a while, and then I called Justin. I said, "Justin, you need to call him and agree with what I just said."
Yeah, make sure that. Oh, that is
But it
funny.
was awesome to realize that someone, I'm 5 years out now, almost 5 years out
Yeah.
of the law firm, and this person who I have known for forever is still participating in the program, continues to see the value in it, and is continuing with the firm even though I left, which
Yeah,
is beautiful.
that's
It's a legacy thing.
it is. And I did a podcast, not a podcast, a video this morning um talking about the Red Wagon Club and the benefits of the Red Wagon Club. And I honestly didn't remember as I was doing that I was doing this podcast with you.
Yeah.
But I was doing it, doing this video, talking about the Red Wagon Club, and all I kept thinking was, I owe this to Susan Hunter.
Oh,
And then when I was leaving my lunch appointment and up on my appointment, popped in 3 minutes, you have a video or a podcast. I went, oh my gosh, Susan. But I had just done the Red Wagon Club. And then I have another funny story about the power of the national network.
hmm,
We had a client who was in our Red Wagon Club that moved to Denver, Colorado.
hmm.
And I have, someone that we trained together and
I know who you're talking about.
who's been a dear friend of ours. And I coach him to this day.
Yeah.
And I said to my client, reach out to Skip, check in with him, see if he can help out. And lo and behold, Skip has the same exact program, of course, right? I mean, that's the whole point. And he said, you come on in, I'll still give the fee guarantee. I know Jeff's got your plan working fine. And it was a seamless transition for my client to move to Denver, stay in the program, but just with a different law firm. It was the same price. I mean, it was like crazy.
It's like this sort of validation maybe of all the work we did for all those years, and now we're seeing it kind of come full circle, and it's grown. LWP's grown so much, and there's lawyers everywhere now, and that network has always been the key to the success of that whole system.
Yeah.
Being able to say, I will find you someone who does it the way we do it,
Yeah.
and having those resources in that network is just invaluable, and
You
the
know, I
clients appreciate it so much.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, I don't teach the program anymore, but I'll occasionally be asked to speak, a breakout session or do something
Sure.
at the retreat. And, you know, I a lot of people don't know us anymore. I mean,
I
you and I are kind of the old guard, we're the has-beens, if you will.
Oh, that hurts.
I know, but I still, every time I teach, I tell stories about Susan and I. Like, it's just, that's who I am in that organization. It's Susan and Jeff, right?
Do you
And
remember we were having dinner at a program a few years back? I was there for a vendor thing, and
okay,
just happened to be at the same thing at the same time, and we were having
right.
dinner. And one of the attendees at the LWP program came over to our table and was just like starstruck. And
Yes. Yes.
I
Well,
can't believe Jeff Belomo and Susan Hunter are
are
sitting right
together. Yeah.
because it was on the videos. They had
Well,
used all the video teaching that we had done.
and that's actually where I was headed. Like I literally am sitting at this event and I got done teaching. I walk off the stage and this attorney comes up to me and he says, I, I just need you to know that you and Susan are like gods in my eyes. And I said, oh, I miss her. And I said, but Susan and I, like, you just joined.
Yeah,
How do you even know who we are?
yeah,
And he looked at me and he goes, what do you mean? And I said, well, we don't teach, we haven't, I don't think Susan been in the organization for 5, 6 years.
right.
And he looked at me and he goes, yeah, but your videos are still the ones that they use and still the ones that we train with. So I have literally watched you and I have you memorized. Susan, he started telling some of the jokes that I used that day. It was the one in San Diego. That's the recording. You and I, it was
Yeah,
the last time I think we did it together.
I think it was.
Yeah, because I took a break after that and you
Yeah,
retired. I think we all kind of
yeah.
went our separate ways for a little while there. And it was like nutty to me, but that's still the videos that they're watching. So when I go into a room now, most of them know who I am because of the fact that they saw the video.
They've been watching all those
What
videos.
year? 2015?
It had to have been. Yeah, in that neighborhood, maybe 16, somewhere in that
Okay.
neighborhood. I can't remember when you pulled back because you're right. We kind of went back and forth a little bit there for a while.
Yeah.
And it,
It's
yeah, it's been
crazy.
a while since we co-taught. And
And that's the video that they're
but they were
still
always
watching.
videotaping every time,
Always. You're
like
right.
every time we co-taught anything. And
Yeah.
they were always videotaping and always recording it. And so
Yeah.
it makes me feel good. I'm still a little famous, even though I don't do it
You
anymore.
you are, and I'll tell you, I still, I'm of course, I'm very close with all the people who are
Of
teaching the
course.
program now, and they'll bounce things off of me, and I'll give them my opinions, but I'll always joke and say you'll never be as good as Jeff and Susan. I mean, of course, I'm joking. I don't believe that, but we did have a good chemistry together.
And I'm going to say this about the whole LWP experience. Even though I'm in a totally different industry, I could not be more different.
Right?
The business practices that I learned are still applicable. It's
Yeah.
everything transfers, and so if you take out the what we called the legal technical piece of it
Right.
and boiled it down just to the business practices that we taught for all those years, those are universal practices,
Yeah.
and they have made all the difference as I built this new business
Yeah.
that I literally came into with no knowledge except what I got off of YouTube. And, but I also learned the value of that national network.
Yeah.
So I didn't wait around 8 or 9 years before I found a network. I found a network right away in the new
Right.
industry and made sure that I was listening to the experts and paying attention to those
Yeah.
people that have been there and done that. That value, you can't replace that. Experience
No.
is where it lies. And so when you're talking to someone that's been in the business for 30, 35 years, listen to what they say to you.
Yeah.
They have that experience behind them.
Yeah, and I haven't done it in years, but I mean, after you had left the practice, Justin and I were on a phone call monthly.
Yeah.
And I mean, it all translates. I mean, I know it's different state laws sometimes, but the concepts are the same. The thought process is the same. I mean, so, and as I expected, Susan, you and I could talk for hours,
Oh, yeah.
right?
No problem.
So we are up against it already, which does not surprise me one bit. But to my listeners, you have to know that I've been looking forward to this podcast for a year. So this has meant a lot to me to kind of come full circle with Susan and have an opportunity to thank her for the impact that she's had in my life. And, we did talk a little bit about Lawyers with Purpose, which is near and dear to both of our hearts. So thank you to my listeners for being here today. If you are looking for education, please check us out at www.belomoassociates.com. We educate in all areas so that what happened to my family doesn't happen to yours. Those workshops are in pre-planning, crisis planning, special needs planning, life care planning, and administration, both probate and trust administration after a loved one passes. We would be honored to help you with that journey of your life if the need arises. So thank you again to my listeners. Susan, thank you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. It means the world to me. And thank you again to my listeners. So until next time, I really can't thank you enough for joining us on the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show, where we discuss all things estate planning and elder law. And well, hey, anything else we want to talk about. And until next time, we'll see you real soon.